Call the meeting of the Planning Commission to order for Thursday, February 26th. If y'all please rise. And we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moment of silence, please. Amen. All right, clerk, if you'll call our roll, please.
Stan Schmidt,
Present.
Scott Stager, Angela Leduc,
Here.
Daniel Malagal,
Here.
Maria Mills Benet, Bobo Femi,
I'm here.
Thomas Jordan.
Present. Thank you very much. Want to welcome our newest member, Angela, to the dais here. Welcome.
Thank you.
And you didn't get the memo that you were supposed to bring cookies, or
I didn't see
how
that.
did we miss that one?
Pumpkin
The pound gates.
Orientation.
Pumpkin bread? I have to compete.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
have to
yeah.
compete with the pumpkin bread.
That's why those soldiers are back here.
We're gonna do a consideration of the minutes from November, right?
Way back now.
Move to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Can I
Second
get a
that.
second? We have a second from Stan. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We're gonna move into the first item on the agenda here and the second. We're gonna open them both up at the same time.
Thank you, sir.
So I'll take a motion on on item number 4, please.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve case number CPAM-26-0001.
We have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
Motion is second to open that.
Mr.
Can we
Chairman.
vote on that one? Or just to have the motion?
Yeah, you need, put both motions out there.
All right.
So you need another motion.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve case number rezoning-26-0001.
We have a second.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second for the rezoning portion of item number 5. Penny, hi.
Hi, good evening. Penelope Cruz, Planning Manager. So we're back before you with this property here located on the west side of Airport Road, north of Charles Street. As you recall, it was annexed to the city of Port Orange in June 2025. And once a property is annexed, the property then requires an assignment of a city future land use and zoning designation. In October of 2025, after following the Planning Commission public hearing, the City Council did not approve the applications for the previous request for a future land use amendment and for a planned unit development rezoning for a proposed 113-unit single-family home development on the subject property. Now, according to the Land Development Code, when a rezoning application is denied by the City Council, of subsequent similar rezoning on any portion of the same parcel may not be submitted for a period of 12 months from that date unless specifically authorized by the council. Currently, the applicant is now requesting a different zoning designation. The current request is to rezone the subject property to the city's R20 SF, Single Family Zoning District, and because the current request is for a different zoning classification than previously denied PUD, the request is not considered a similar rezoning request under the code, and a new application may be considered within that 12-month period. Most of the property is cleared, vacant pasture land with a single-family home detached garage pole barn located in the northeast corner of the subject property. And based on the aerial imagery, the subject property has been cleared as pasture land since at least 1978. The property, as we said, consists of cleared, improved pasture land. It's generally flat topography with a slight east to west slope containing man-made agriculture drainage features, including shallow north to south trenches and an east-west drainage ditch and a cattle pond. The only surface water on site are the man-made agricultural ditches and the cattle pond. The environmental analysis includes a review of the Volusia County wetland mapping obtained from the county's website, which indicates that no jurisdictional wetlands are identified within the boundaries of the subject property. Although mapped wetland features are present west of the site, none are shown on the subject property. Based on this mapping and other data collected by their environmental consultant, the assessment concludes that the property does not contain jurisdictional wetlands and that no wetland impacts are anticipated with any future development. With the first item that was open tonight, the applicant is requesting to change the future land use map designation of approximately 52.96 acres from Volusia County Agricultural Resource and 3.57 acres of Volusia County Urban Low Intensity to City of Port Orange Rural Transition. The rural transition designation is intended for lands near Spruce Creek and its tributaries, particularly where properties lie between agriculture uses and established residential neighborhoods with a residential development limited to no more than 2 units per acre. The subject property meets the locational criteria for the rural transition future land use designation, as it is situated adjacent to Spruce Creek, bordered by agricultural land to the south and developed residential neighborhoods to the north, northeast, and west. Urban services are available in the Airport Road right-of-way to serve the subject site, and the proposed R20 SF zoning aligns with the maximum density allowed. According to the infrastructure impact analysis in the staff report, adequate capacity exists for public infrastructure and services to accommodate the proposed amendment. The second item that was open tonight is a request by the applicant to rezone approximately 56.53 acres consisting of 52.96 acres of Volusia County A1 and 3.57 acres of Volusia County A2 to the City of Port Orange R20SF single-family residential zoning. The dimensional requirements in the Land Development Code for a single-family home lot in the R20SF zoning are shown here on the screen, as well as in the staff report. And according to the Land Development Code, this R20SF zoning district is intended to function as a transitional zoning category between rural, low-density areas and medium to higher density residential areas. Its purpose is to help protect existing agricultural uses and rural residences while also allowing for appropriate residential densities. If the future land use amendment and rezoning are approved, the developer, Paytas Homes, intends to submit a development application for a 50-lot single-family residential subdivision, resulting in a density of approximately 1 dwelling unit per acre, consistent with and actually lower than the density of the surrounding area. Based upon meeting the review criteria outlined in each staff report, staff is recommending approval of the proposed future land use amendment and the rezoning, and is here to answer any questions you may have. The applicant is also here and may want to also present as well. So,
Cool, thank you very much,
You're welcome.
appreciate that. Daniel, you got anything for Penny?
Yeah, so you're saying that you're looking to put 1 unit per acre, but we're looking for a 4 unit per acre zoning. Why the disparity?
So the future land use designation actually has a maximum density of 2 units per acre.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah,
Thought it
rural
was more.
transition is 0 to 2.
Okay,
The zoning is R20SF. It is one of the zoning categories that's in our consistency matrix for which zoning is consistent with which land use. It allows a 20,000 square foot lot, and regardless of what the lot size is, sorry, I'm trying to get to the, oh, it cuts off. I'm sorry. It doesn't show the full screen, it cuts off. So, oh no, it's right there, everything. So this is the 20,000 square foot lot and the dimensional criteria. You can never, when they submit a subdivision plat and plans, you can never go above what your land use allows. And the engineer of record can probably speak to this in more detail, but like I said, with conventional zoning, it doesn't require a concept plan like the prior proposed PUD did. But in speaking with the development team, they obviously wanted to know what they were going to get if they were to rezone to R20. And their engineer of record has told us that because with conventional zoning, you have to meet all the straight land development code requirements. There's no deviations or anything you can write into a master development agreement. It's just you're following the code. So in order to follow the land development code and meet all of our criteria, all they could fit on the property are 50 lots. That's what they're proposing to submit if this gets approved,
okay. Thanks for
which would
clarity.
yield 1 unit per acre density, gross density, less
Gotcha.
than what the future land use allows.
You good?
I'm good, thank you.
Bo?
The only question I have at this point is the 2 parcels. You've got an A1 and A2, previous zoning, right? They used to be A1, A2, different densities. Are they gonna be equal as far as density is concerned? I mean, there's no distinction once
No, so,
this is approved.
so there's 3 parcels that are part of this proposal. There's 2 different categories under Volusia County. As is documented in the staff report, the current density allowed under Volusia County yields 19 units.
Mhm.
So, and what they're looking to do is 50, so about 31 additional units.
Okay, thank you.
But it's all gonna be consistent.
Yeah, that was my question.
Gotcha. Good. Angela, you're up. Any questions for Penny?
The Volusia County A1 and A2, and it's called like prime agriculture and rural agriculture. Can you just explain what the difference between that is? How Port Orange is going to see it? It's not going to see it as agricultural preservation or agricultural land. It's going to go straight to the.
No, it would no
R20.
longer have the Volusia, it's getting rezoned to a city category, which
Mhm.
is the R20SF, so it's a single-family home zoning. It would not be agriculture anymore.
And okay, and there's never usually an opportunity to go back to agriculture at that point, right?
I've only seen one in the 20 years I've been here, which we just did about a month or so ago in November. There was the property off Fern Park that went from a higher density down to agriculture, but that's once in 20 years. And that's what the applicant requested. We don't have a lot of agriculture zoning in Port Orange because we're a city. And so most of the agriculture zoning that you see on our zoning map, and it's actually described in the land development code that it's like a placeholder until property develops. It's kind of,
Well, that's what kind of
It's like an
confused me because I
interim.
looked up the
Yeah.
code and like section 4 is agricultural preservation, which we have less than 1% in the city. But the agriculture district, we don't have any in the city,
so you're talking,
correct? There's two different,
We don't
there's
really
two
actually-
different sections
so
in
there's
the
land,
code.
there's future land use and then there's zoning. We actually don't have any agriculture preservation. We have agriculturally zoned property in the city, but they're not actual agriculture properties. The majority of, there's like one that's in.
So the designation on the comprehensive plan,
That's yeah, so
so
we're,
that's not
so
the
I-
same thing. Oh,
so
that's not linked
future
up.
land use and zoning are two different things. But we have one property in the city that's zoned, has agriculture zoning and is in timber production. But pretty much all the other zoning, properties that are zoned agriculture have single family, they're just like 1 acre lots and they were zoned that way as placeholders. A couple of them have developed into subdivisions with 1 acre lots because they allow people to have horses on them. But we don't really have agriculture, a lot of agriculture use in the city proper, other than the one property that's it's in timber use.
Well, there was a couple that are current, I saw on the zoning map. Right, I mean, there's.
Correct, but
still-
like what I was
but
saying,
the-
but as
but
far
the-
as how they're used, they're
Uh-huh.
not used for like farms for agriculture purposes. They're mostly single family large lot subdivisions.
Right, so as a community, we're not really concerned of like preserving any of that. Like food scarcity is not a concern for the city.
I don't think anybody said that.
Okay.
So we actually have so most cities are different than rural areas. Cities are more suburban and urban density, and you don't see a lot of traditional commercial farms within cities. You do see smaller, like, community gardens and things like that, and every zoning category allows community gardens. We've never had anybody want to do that. But it's a permitted use in every single zoning district, so if
Okay.
any community wanted to come in and do one in their neighborhood, it's allowed. So we've actively amended the code to promote things like that are the typical types of agriculture, like smaller scale that you see in urban areas. As far as these properties, the property owners have a right to apply to change their density, and we have to process their request. The current property owners are in contract with the contract purchaser. The current property owners don't have a desire to continue any kind of agriculture use on this property, nor does the purchase contractor, so, contract purchaser, sorry. And we are processing their request. We have to review it against the review criteria in the comprehensive plan and the land development code. And according to that analysis of that review criteria, it meets those criteria, which is why we're recommending approval.
Right, so yeah, whoever made the comprehensive future plan, whenever they made it years ago, they didn't want agricultural preservation. Cause it wasn't in the future zoning maps at all, so, I mean, that makes sense.
We don't actively change private property land use, so property owners apply to change land use. We actually didn't have an agriculture preservation designation until the last update or so, and we created that category to make it available if anybody wanted to utilize it. But as a city, we do not change land use on private property. The private property owners make applications and we review those, but we do not go change them without any authorization from the private property owner. But we created the category to make it available if anybody wanted to utilize it.
Right, there's two different categories.
Yes, the preservation one was not available before. That's a new category that came into play with the current update of the plan. Before we had agriculture, and then we've created this new category too that is available for people if they want to use it. It wasn't always part of the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
You
Thank you.
good for now?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Stan?
I think I'm good for now.
The only question I had was on the, let's make sure I'm on the right one here, so on the plan amendment, the traffic section on page, shoot, what page am I on here? 8.
Mhm.
So it looks like the only significant area where the yellow, or the adopted level of service could be, the actual use could be lower than the LOS, is down on Pioneer, is that right?
Correct, and that's with this comp plan amendment, we have to analyze theoretical max.
Right,
2 units per acre. As I stated, they intend to come in, if this is approved with a subdivision, that would be 1 unit per acre. So if the land use and zoning is approved, we have to do we have to do a concurrency review at that level.
okay.
And we will have an updated analysis at that point that reviews what's actually proposed on the property, which would be a lesser density, and then see where things are at that point.
Yeah, does that take, has this taken into account what's happening on Pioneer now, or we're looking at?
Yes, yeah, and it will, the future analysis will,
So
because
you have
it's,
those plans already built into the model?
it should, yes, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
and therefore we have the possibility that we'll exceed or not meet the level of service then?
Well,
That's-
potentially, like I said, this analyzed
Yeah,
the theoretical max.
but they have to do a traffic study anyway.
Yes,
right?
they'll have to
That'll
do an
come later.
updated one. If the land use and zoning is approved and they're able to move forward to the next step of submitting subdivision plans, they will have to provide an updated concurrency level at the, subdivision level of actually what's being built.
Right,
Not a theoretical
and that's
analysis.
the point where you could determine whether there's a fair share
Correct.
impact?
That is when you determine it,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
very cool.
Yep.
Very good. Anybody else have anything for Penny while you're sitting there thinking? No, you're good?
No, sir. I'm good.
Cool. Penny, thank you very much
You're
for the
welcome.
presentation. I'd like to bring the applicant up to do a presentation, answer any questions.
Hey. Good evening, Joey Posey, 420 South Nova, attorney for the applicant. Just to maybe paint some picture for how we got here a little more than I think the staff report mentioned, for really the benefit of the 2 members especially. Yes, property was annexed about a year ago, a little less than a year ago. I think the zoning designations, the zoning and all of that has been identified, but The one thing I wanted to point out is that when it was up for annexation, the intention obviously was to come in as a planned development with 113 units. That was the representation we even were transparent about at the council level, and also as we moved through the annexation process. And of course, as Penny had mentioned, that didn't end up moving forward because of the 2-2 vote. But at the, that was where we started from, and that was what originally came before this board on recommendation to be reviewed for consistency with the future land use and the zoning code. So fast forward to today, here we are again with a very materially different application in terms of the intensities and densities. And the R20 single family residential category, as Penny had alluded to, just applying the code in a vacuum, trying to lay it out, it nets only a 1 unit gross acre lot subdivision. That is functionally how it works if you just meet the minimum standards of code. So in a hypothetical world where you just apply what the code is, the code rules, it's at greatest at 50. But as we all know, as you move through these processes and your permitting, that's a ceiling. That isn't a floor. So you start at 50 and you work backwards. So I suspect 50 is probably a little bit of ambitious. And I have the plan in the presentation too that I will point out. But I just wanted to make the frame of reference. Just to understand a little bit that when you're talking about hypothetical density under the future land use, that isn't your developable density. That's not what goes into the ground and what appears. That's what, from a policy perspective, you're saying is the acceptable range that this property can hold, but you still have to apply the zoning. The zoning is what controls, and if you apply the zoning, you're talking about a hypothetical ceiling of 50. So just to give you a sense, I think that Penny had mentioned that it's transitional when you're talking about R20 is a transitional zoning from a more rural, low density to a medium to high density area. I think it's arguable to say that the surrounding neighborhoods are necessarily medium or high, but given the feedback we've received, it's in our mind an appropriate density, given where we started and given, I think, the feedback we've received from the community. This is just in context for folks that may not realize where we're at. You have this fly-in to the north, Water's Edge. Cypress Head is to the east, and there's a unincorporated mobile home park or unincorporated county mobile home park immediately to the west. These are the city identified future land use map densities. So in terms of, I guess, acceptable hypothetical density in a future land use map sense, it's the lowest in the area, and it would most certainly be the lowest in terms of what the developable density is. So this property has been a farm for quite a long time. It's been cattle, and you can even see even back to 1978 here, just to give you a sense of what it looked like. It's been an impacted piece of property. It doesn't have wetland body on it. There's not a substantial tree coverage on it. In terms of infill, these are the kind of properties you're looking at when you say this makes some sense for where you would expect development to occur. And obviously it's locale dependent, but it's not a piece of property that you have to substantially impact in any material way when it comes to tree coverage and water bodies that may be on the property. The history, maybe for the other, this is more for the folks that may have not been here. We really, over a year ago plus now, we started at a discussion point of 153. It's been walked back a number of times to what the previous application for the Vintage Acres development was at the 112 units plus the Ballman, what we call the Ballman track. And just given the substantial legwork that the applicant's done over the last few months to try to find a feasible alternative for this property, which is essentially what resulted in what this plan in rough concept is. This is an example of what R20 would lay out as if you applied just the code in a vacuum, and it's essentially cutting the density in half of what the previous application was for. It's a reduction of 113 lots to 50 lots, and you're more or less talking about an impervious coverage of about 20%, which is very, very low. it's probably less than that too. This is just a generalization, because until you design it, it's hard to pinpoint a number, but that's probably a safe ceiling for what we're talking about. These are the characteristics of what this type of zoning category is. It is rural in nature. You're 100-foot minimum, which I was just chatting real quick to make sure I had my numbers right, but the surrounding communities in terms of Spruce Creek Fly-In, Water's Edge, and the Fly-In I think is a 70 minimum or more or less. There's an 80 minimum for Cypress Head, if I recall correctly, plus Water's Edge. So I mean, you're already starting from a point that's already 20 foot in addition width for a minimum lot size, and obviously that creates a bigger minimum lot area and a substantial increase in the lot open space. If I recall correctly, for the previous application, it was 30% per lot. It's minimum code requirement, which you can't deviate from, of 60% per lot. That results, as you can see, if you just run the scenario of a maximum 50 lot unit, 50 lot project on 56 acres, which results in a gross density of 1 per acre, which is substantially less than any of the surrounding communities, more or less, except to the south. I mean, I will be transparent that some of the southern community is a lot of old cattle farms, or all just old farming community that in between Pioneer there, that's 1 to 5 acre, but everything from east, west, north, it's far less than all of those. Larger lots, less density, less impervious. There's no waivers being requested. This is just straight zoning. We're not looking for a deviation in any way. I think traffic impacts was mentioned, and as Penny had mentioned, you have to look at the hypothetical based on the future land use hypothetical maximum, even though it's not possible if you rezone the property to. Yes.
Ma'am. If you'd like to carry on a conversation, could you take it outside? You're spreading around the room, so thank you. Go ahead, Julie.
Okay. I mean, if you're just thinking about it logically, that if you're half the density or half the trips, more or less, then you're half of the impacts, of course. What I think I would point out is that typically when you go through this process, you do a traffic memo that kind of estimates those impacts. In this case, we're relying on what we like to call a baby TIA that analyzed some intersectional impacts when we were originally coming in with 113 units. There was no impact. There was no failures under that analysis, and I'm putting on my layman hat, but if you cut it in half, the impacts, there hypothetically should be no impacts when it comes to half of the density. But we're still obligated to do a TIA, like Penny mentioned, and at the time of subdivision, and that would also result in a proportionate fair share contribution to the city for any necessary improvements. So, the same commitments are being made, even though they're not necessarily straight zoning. We're not looking to connect to Charles Street, just emergency only. That's not a problem. The design works with that. So from a traffic perspective, there's no issues there. And obviously the applicant is the same applicant, and just a quick summary that we had mentioned the last time for Paytas Homes. I'm sure most in the community know who he is, and he had a hand in many of the communities that surround this proposed community. So he's very familiar with the nature of the area. Again, this type of zoning is something that even further aligns with what the rural nature of this area would be. And the thing I think to keep in mind too is when I think we were talking in terms of the future land use, and cities are urban character when it comes to how development proceeds in them. So usually you see, for instance, the agricultural type zonings transition when urban services become available. So, once upon a time, everything out here, and even the Fly-In, if I remember correctly, was A1. So that's just the nature of how, as cities evolve, they grow up. You provide urban services become available, which makes the what would be the appropriate category it shifts a little bit. And from the developer's perspective, being on the far lower end of that spectrum is where he wants to be, just in the nature of the project. But I think that's maybe helps conceptually how you wind up in a situation where as your city grows, how do you incorporate? Well, you incorporate, and then urban services expand, which affects the what the appropriate zoning category would be on a piece of property. I guess the obvious things are, this is, nice, it's a smaller project, but it's a project that, would have benefit to really, just a little bit of an infill development, but, it creates, jobs, it does create its own revenue. It's a major step down from what was originally proposed. And in our mind, that this is, given the nature of what's surrounding it and what maybe the appropriate category would be, it is a responsible zoning category to go to for development of the property. Other than that, our team's available to answer any questions or clarify anything. But in terms of the reduction in density and what the impacts were from the original proposal that moved through, it's night and day. So I'm available for questions or try to facilitate feedback as I hear it. But other than that, that's my presentation.
Very cool. Thanks, sir. Appreciate that. Any questions for the applicant? Stan, start with you.
Can you put the map back up of the site? The kind of last one that you were showing that has the ponds in it.
That shows the potential layout?
Right.
Okay, yeah.
So so you've got the two ponds. The one that's farther west is a retention pond with the controlled outlet. The one in the middle then is also that. And then over to the right of the middle of that L-shaped, that's really, if I remember correctly, that's really just a dry zone that will help you bleach out or leach out all the
Yep, the nutrients.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, and
Nutrients in
that's
there.
the dry treatment down to the wet retention. It's the new St. John's requirements in terms of how you have to treat water.
Right.
But I guess the added benefit of designing this way, unlike a lot of older subdivisions, is that it does create more capacity because you have to have volume to treat the water. And the other thing to keep in mind too is that a lot of the older communities don't have systems designed like this. Even going across just the creek and just for instance in Quiet Place, if I recall correctly, most of the stormwater design was incorporated on the lots. So this is a community that would be controlled by an HOA in terms of its design, and that's what in a lot of modern communities eats up a lot of your area. So long-winded way of getting to I think what you're getting to.
So my question then is there a connection between that, what do you want to call it, leached out area to the main drainage that
Yes.
is to the east?
Yes,
Is there,
yeah.
Are there
Yeah,
pipes?
they're piped, correct.
Okay. And is it possible for anything in the other two ponds to flow back uphill into this leach out area?
Shouldn't be, but I do caution that this hasn't been designed, necessarily designed fully, so it has to be.
Okay.
I will say that. So from a site development perspective and applying the code, you have to do it that way. So I guess it's safe to say that it would have to be done that way, but I can't speak to necessarily
Right.
what I see in front of me.
Right. Okay. And then there's two small areas up in the upper right corner, next to the was it the Bauman piece
Correct.
below that. Are those kind of leach out areas also?
Correct, and part of this is, and this is maybe getting into the weeds a little bit. We are, again, as part of the last go around, the applicant made outreach to the Spruce Creek Fly-In and trying to get their input on, how to help them in terms of how the design would be, and a lot of this conceptually on the northerly boundary is a result of some of that discussion and trying to figure out, well, what's the best way to help them too, and maybe some swale, maybe in terms of how the system's designed a little bit, or maybe it's an independent swale. So this isn't necessarily in stone, but
Okay, I understand that.
but again, we're trying to conceptually help them too with the design of this project. So, but hypothetically, yes, it would all have to be piped together.
It's more driven by my old eyes. You're getting kind of tiny on some of this stuff. I think that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Thank you. Angela.
No questions.
Oh,
What about the water? I know that's an issue, and I'm curious about how we mitigate that. We have a plan there.
Yes.
Okay, can we talk about that?
To a degree that we can't avoid city requirements, and we're half the lots, so, you know, I think from a net benefit perspective, if, you know, you're going to an impervious coverage of closer to a 20% coverage, with a minimum lot coverage of, or in, minimum open space for every lot of 60%, it's a net positive in my mind from where originally the proposal was versus where this proposal's going to.
Yeah. Okay, and I don't know if this is a Joey question or a Penny question. Was the Sam Sula overlay ever a part of this issue, of this property? Or has it been subject to the Sam Sula?
Well, the overlay is, and there's county attorney has chimed in on this. The overlay applies to properties within its jurisdiction. So this property's been annexed into the city of Port Orange. But the other nice benefit, I guess, is that this layout results in a gross density of 1 acre. So, you know, arguably you're meeting the 1 acre threshold that you otherwise would have been in the Samsula local plan too. But in terms of its applicability, it doesn't apply to the jurisdiction of the city.
But it does expand the boundary of the city for future, you know, annexing.
Well, the
Because
annexation's
of-
already occurred. So,
Okay.
so, you know, in terms of the demarcation line, it's the southerly portion of this property,
All right,
regardless of the outcome today.
yeah, it's already in the city.
okay, all right, thank you.
You good?
I'm good.
Daniel?
No questions? Thank you.
Question? Joey, real quick. Yes. Sorry, you don't get to go.
Okay.
From my understanding on the water retention and release, there's rules
Yes.
that say how much you have to be able to hold on the property. And there's also rules that say how much you're allowed to release over a given time. Is that correct?
That's correct, and a lot of them are, you know, permitting driven, and you know, actually it's changed even too from St. John's because they have new standards that have gone into place. So, you know, from a you know, water retention side and how you treat your water, it's much more stringent over just the course of this project
Right.
than it was when, you know, from the permitting side from St. John's and from when we started. So.
I guess what my question is, you have to design to
Yes.
those new rules.
Yeah, and we would have to design to the new St. John's rules, correct, and that's just something that comes out of the subdivision process, which again, another lengthy process, you'd have to go from this point forward, so, we would be subject to any rules that apply at the St. John's level, and then we'd apply the city's rules in conjunction with that.
Cool. All right. Very good. That's all I had for you. Thank you very much.
Thank
So
you.
we're gonna move on to, okay. We're gonna move on to public comments. So I want two things. We had a couple people that were recording, and that's really cool. I just want to remind everybody, that we will put this up on the YouTube channel for the city shortly, so you can come back and review the whole thing afterwards. And also just a reminder, we're a quasi-judicial body, so we deal in facts. That's really how we're structured. Just to let you know, that's the things we like to talk about. So what I'll do is, we'll invite anybody who wants to come up and speak. Everybody gets 3 minutes, up to 3 minutes. You don't have to use the whole time. And we prefer that if somebody's already talked about a particular element, a particular item or an issue, we don't need to have it repeated. We understand you're passionate about it, but in the interest of time for everyone, we don't need to have redundancy in the comments. So if you want to raise your hand, what we'll do is I'll call on you. When you come up to the microphone, we want to know your name and your address. Those are the two things that we need for public record. Anything else I missed?
You got it.
We're good, cool. You, sir. And then we'll get to you.
Good evening, Mike Poniatowski, Tomoka Farms Village. For some strange reason,
Street address, if you could.
it's protected by law.
Okay,
redacted.
thank you.
Yep.
Just, you know.
For some strange reason, I feel like I'm in a time warp or some kind of Groundhog Day on steroids. I carefully read items 4 and 5 on tonight's agenda, and it brought to mind a verse in Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves, suggesting that their true nature would be revealed by their actions, or by an Aesop's fable, under a sheepskin often hides a wolfish mind. In plain English, today comes before you a wolf in sheep's clothing. Palin Acres look suspiciously like Vintage Acres, which this body approved back in October of 2025, but your city council twice voted down soon thereafter. At that time, the mayor and council members stated that they wanted to wait on the results of the Spruce Creek Watershed Study, which your agenda item notes will be completed in April of this year, just 2 months away. This project squarely sits in the watershed. In fact, it's a mere yards away from this designated outstanding Florida waterway, which still demands the highest level of protection. No surgeon would ever perform an operation on any patient without having the proper test results in hand. Why rezone a piece of property when you still don't have the results of that very important watershed study, which could determine changes need to be made? We also are aware that the first vote of the City Council was 2-2 against, and the second vote a month later was again 4-1 against. In fact, some of the documents in your packet officially describes Palin Acres, aka it says Vintage Acres in bold reality, that the name has changed, but the plan is not, except for a lower density. It's still going to be a fill and build slab on grade project. The names are the same, the players are the same, the location is the same, everything is the same. In fact, the damage that can be done to the neighbors is the same. Why the fourth bite at the apple within the 12-month period? If you are truly concerned about the environment, your citizens, and the unincorporated county, what's the harm in waiting the allotted time for the study to be completed, those results to be delivered for digestion and analysis by planning, by the commission, by your great minds, and the developer themselves? So why don't we protect this outstanding waterway by waiting the 12 months, by waiting until the watershed study is presented to us in April, so we can use those results to make an informed decision, which is best for the community, best for the environment, best for your citizens, best for the neighbors, and best for the developer. This is no more than a wolf in sheep's clothing. The same plan, a little change, and nothing else has changed. So please bear that in mind when you vote tonight, whether to approve or deny. Please wait until we have the results of the tests so we can make an importantly informed decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, very cool. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Oh.
Good evening, Catherine Pante, Slow the Growth, Volusia. My address is protected. Tonight, I strongly oppose this rezoning application to proceed any further. Article 1, Section 7D of the Land Development Code states, reapplication for denied zoning. When an application for rezoning is denied by the City Council, a subsequent application for similar rezoning on any portion of the same parcel may not be made for 12 months from the date of denial unless specifically authorized by the City Council on any portion of the same parcel. This applicant was denied on October 21st, 2025, and denied again after appealing to the Commission in November of 2025. Under the rules currently in place, the landowner is not eligible to reapply for any zoning change until November of 2026. The 12-month waiting period exists for a reason. Allowing this application to proceed now sets a dangerous precedent. If one applicant can sidestep established rules, others will expect the same treatment. At that point, the Land Development Code becomes optional and decisions begin to appear arbitrary rather than grounded in policy, planning, and fairness. I also want to address public perception. A request like this creates the appearance of quid pro quo between a builder who sits on the City Commission and another builder who submitted the request and contributed to his political campaign. Please turn to page 10 on the first line. The development of the subject property will increase the amount of impervious surface area. Now look at the final sentence. 4 rainfall events have exceeded the 11-inch 24-hour threshold, see figure 4. Consider Hurricane Ian in 2022, which brought 20 inches of rain in 24 hours, and Hurricane Milton in 2024, which brought 15.26 inches in 24 hours. Both events far exceeded that 11-inch threshold. The continued loss of green space is contributing to worsening flooding events. To recap, during Hurricane Ian, 7,000 homes and 1,000 businesses flooded. 5 Volusia County residents drowned, and Volusia County Sheriff's Office performed 1,000 high water rescues. These are not just numbers. These are lives, families, and neighborhoods. When will development decisions begin prioritizing public safety and public health over private development interests? The city has a fundamental responsibility to protect its residents. You are under no obligation to approve development applications or change zoning from its original agricultural designation, especially when those changes increase risk, jeopardize public safety, and erode community confidence. In closing, I urge you to uphold the integrity of our rules and of this commission. Follow the code as written. Do not waive the 12-month waiting period. The applicant is not entitled to a zoning change. This property is owned agricultural land and should remain that way. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much, appreciate that. Sir, you had your hand raised.
My name is John Gerchek. I'm a Vietnam veteran, and I've lived in this property since 1979.
Could you give your address?
295 Country Circle Drive East.
Thank you.
I've been married for 51 years. And out of those 51 years, they've all been in the same residence. And I've never flooded before until Hurricane Ian. And I don't believe this building is going to stop any flooding because the watershed survey has not been done. And I lost a lot of tools. It flooded up to my house. It took my air conditioning out, inside and out. And I lost a whole bunch of electric tools. My barn went completely underwater. And if you'd like to see pictures, here they are, and I don't know how to work your computer, so let's see. This might help.
That's the problem.
We've never had any flooding until Hurricane Ian. It's come up to the bank in the backyard, but it's never flooded until Hurricane Ian. And this development going in is only going to help it to continue flooding. Well, that's about all I have to say is my house went underwater, my barn went underwater, and I oppose this new zoning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, appreciate your time.
Mr. Chairman, is there a possibility we could see those photos?
I don't think that's relevant to the case.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name is Gary Singleton, and my address is also protected. Oh, a simple piece of information. This property was annexed because it was under the protection of the Samsula local plan, which they needed to avoid that. So that's why it was annexed in the first place. The original design for the development of this property was denied, requiring a 1-year wait to resubmit. He appealed and was denied. Mr. Paytas should be held to the decision of the Port Orange City Council and be made to wait 1 year to resubmit as per your rules. Mr. Paytas, staff, even the Port Orange City Council are not above the law. The rules are clear and should be applied to everyone fairly, equally, and with total transparency. Accepting this resubmission sets a dangerous precedent. Staff should not be allowed to break the rules previously imposed by the city's elected officials. The project was redesigned as required, the number of lowered, but this is a resubmission. It's the same property, same project, same developer. If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it is a duck. The original submission was denied not because of the number of units, but because of serious issues regarding harm to Spruce Creek and the flooding of neighboring properties. Does the resubmission address the required improvements needed to properly manage stormwater runoff? Will peak rates and volumes approximate existing pre-development conditions with precautions taken to prevent erosion, sedimentation, and flooding as required by the minimum standards set forth in Volusia County Ordinance Chapter 50, which are enforceable within municipality city limits? I ask that you hold to your rules and deny the use of a technicality to break the moratorium imposed by the elected representatives of Port Orange.
Thanks, sir. Robert? Good to see you.
Commission members, Robert Reinhagen, 1425 Dexter Drive, Port Orange. I support what's been said, but I also feel very uncomfortable that when they say they're only going to have 50 homes, that they'll only have 50 homes. This property is going to be zoned 2 units per acre, and as long as they conform to the Land Development Code, to me that means there's a potential that they're going to give us 120 or 119, whatever it was, 113. So I don't feel comfortable with that because once you zone it that way, then they just stick to the code and they can give you more houses than the 50. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else before we close it out? Last chance. All right, we're going to close out public comment, bring it back to the commission. You may.
Joey Posey, 420 South Nova, attorney for the applicant again. Listening to some of the speakers, I think we're mischaracterizing a lot of how this process played out, and I want to make sure on the record that it's clear. At no point from start to finish have we not been honest and upfront about what we're proposing. It's very unusual, even part as an annexation application, to represent how many units and the proposed design of your project before you even annex the property. Usually that's not the case. And part of that transparency was to avoid partly the miscommunications that happen up here after the fact. And Mr. Paytas especially has been very upfront that the original design of this project was 113 units, and that was what was represented before both the council, this commission, and that didn't change. The vote also, too, I want to make sure is very clear on the record that it was a 2-2 on the rezoning, but the 4-1 that was referenced was in reference to allowing that project to come back for reconsideration, 113 units. It wasn't anything beyond that. So to suggest as if this is some kind of moratorium or declaration as to the use of this property is incorrect and a mischaracterization. And even when you read the code, how it states explicitly that when it comes to what bars an applicant to come back is a similar rezoning. It is not any rezoning. It does not say that. It adds the word similar. I'm sure legal counsel, if there's the appetite to get that clarification, I'm sure they'd be more than willing to provide it. But to suggest as if no rezoning is possible is you're just reading the code the way you want to read it. You're not looking at what the term of the code says. The other thing to keep in mind with this property is that currently it's an unimproved old cattle farm. It's not a water body that accepts stormwater flow. It's not improved in any way that is a natural body that would otherwise take the sheet flow from other properties. It just runs in all directions. So To suggest as if that it is in its natural condition some better situation than what would otherwise be improved with a stormwater system, I think is a little bit of a mischaracterization of how this property, from a development perspective, would function. And also to characterize the, some of the events we received, of course, I'm not here to say that, to defend a development per se, but, king tide, the lack of maintenance in a lot of the canals that has occurred in the last few years. I mean, there's a very different situation, and of course, I recognize that, residents can, I sympathize with, where they're coming from and making sure it doesn't happen again, but there have been proactive steps to ensure that trying to watch that and be careful with it is, that they're being looked after. And, I understand the hesitation and where they're coming from, but to suggest as if we're living in the same situation again, I think is, again, not the case. And to clarify, the future land use is a range of 0 to 2. That's what you're asking from a policy perspective on whether that's an appropriate maximum density for this property, but that is not the developable requirements. The developable requirements are the R20, and that's what would control development of this property. And if you add the 15% tree preservation, if you add the stormwater control, which has to be there by code, and you add the minimum open space, there's nothing you can do to avoid getting to the ceiling of 50. 50 is your ceiling. I would imagine that, for instance, the Paytas would come and tell you the same thing, that's what you can do by code. You can't go beyond it. So, to suggest as if we could come back here with a subdivision plan that deviates from that, it just isn't true. But again, I do recognize, a little bit of where they're coming from in terms of, not being impacted and making sure that we do right by them. But, again, I have a hard time, I have to disagree that, going with half of the density, going with a substantial amount more open space and less impervious isn't a better outcome for them, even though, I understand that you may not want anything there, but, I don't see anything as an option. It was annexed into the city. It was clearly representative of what the density that the developer was moving forward with. So other than that, I'm available for additional questions, but I at least wanted those clarifications on the record.
Cool. Thank you very much. So we'll bring it back to the commission here, and any comments, questions, things you want to talk about? Daniel, start with you.
I just want to clarify before I miss the opportunity, when you do get to the point where you're going to vote, just make sure it's we do the 2 separate votes for each case. Thank you.
Got it.
No questions.
Oh, any comments?
The only question that I have is, I thought I understood or heard at some point that the shortened period for a rehearing was approved by the council. Was I wrong on that?
No, the request was to rehear the 113 unit PUD rezoning, which the council did not entertain. So in terms of that development plan and anything similar to that development plan, then yes, they would be barred for the year unless council had approval. But the direction with the city attorney's review is that a straight zoning category of R20, which is half of the density, is substantially deviating from what the original request was.
So because he reduced the density of this project?
Immensely, yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
You good?
I'm good, thank you.
Cool. Angela?
I just have a lot to learn.
We all do.
And I mean, the comprehensive plan, to me, it's of our city. It says that as the city expands into rural areas, we will try, protect the agricultural preservation, future land designation, and zoning. And I don't see how this is doing that. But maybe I'm misinterpreting it.
I think I don't want to try to
I don't know who.
give you an answer.
Right, is that something for the attorney? Is that something for the city manager? I mean, or the planner?
I would sit with community development
Okay.
and cover that. Stan?
No questions at this time.
No? I'm good. I assume you're all then ready to vote? And we're gonna vote on the, case CPAM 260001, the, comprehensive plan amendment first, since the second one is dependent upon that. So you'll call the roll, Madam Clerk?
Stan Schmidt,
Yes.
Angela Leduc,
No.
Daniel Malagon,
No.
Bobo Femi,
Yes.
Thomas Jordan.
Yes. 3-2, is that what I got?
Yep.
Alright, so that passes. Moving on to the rezoning, case number rezoning -26-0001. You'll please call the roll on that one.
Stan Schmidt,
Yes.
Angela Leduc,
No.
Daniel Malagon,
No.
Bobo Femi,
Yes.
Thomas Jordan.
Yes. That motion passes. Alright, so the next step will be, it goes back to City Council. So we'll all chat with them. Moving on to item number 6 on the agenda is an application. Are y'all leaving? If you could all, as you leave, thank you. As you leave, kind of make sure you keep your conversation outside in the hallway so we can continue business here for the rest of the night. We appreciate it. Moving on to case number, item number 6, the LDC text amendment changes. I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve case number DCAM 26-0001.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Daniel. Hi.
Hi, good
Welcome
evening. Thank you. Penelope Cruz, Planning. So the proposed amendment in this package are intended to enhance the existing code as part of the city's ongoing maintenance efforts. Every year we try to bring forth a few amendments to the code to try to clean it up as we encounter different issues with that. The amendments in this particular package address issues encountered by applying the code, including regulations for outdoor donation bins, temporary storage containers, the method for determining whether a color qualifies as an earth tone or pastel, and clarification of color regulations for murals. The first item is to amend Chapter 16 to establish clear, consistent, and enforceable standards for outdoor donation bins, replacing previous practice of classifying them as part of a service area. So service area requirements in our land development code are intended to apply to mechanical equipment and other elements that are associated with a principal structure, such as their AC units, dumpsters, tanks, things like that. Because a donation bin is typically operated by a separate organization and is not an accessory to the principal structure on the site, the staff is proposing specific regulations for these donation bins. The amendment adds a definition for donation bin and establishes standards addressing their location, size, appearance, number, operation, and maintenance. These regulations are designed to improve aesthetics, public safety, ensure site functionality, and provide clear enforcement mechanisms. These key provisions of the amendment was detailed in the staff report, so I'm not going to go over all the details tonight. The next amendment is also to Chapter 16, but this is regarding temporary storage containers on non-residential properties. So similar to, we have regulations in our code right now for these types of structure uses, these temporary storage containers on residential properties, but for non-residential properties, the code doesn't clearly address that. They're commonly used on non-residential properties for construction, renovation, tenant improvements, repairs, or damage restoration, sometimes to store furniture, equipment, and tools and materials during these improvements. Under the proposed amendment, these temporary storage containers would be permitted only in association with active building permits or approved site improvements. And they would be allowed on the property for the duration of that permit and must be removed prior to the issuance of certificate of occupancy or final inspection or other unique circumstance that the administrative official can review. It provides clear, consistent standards for review for these non-residential properties while ensuring compliance with construction and site improvement regulations. The next item is an amendment to Chapter 2 and 14 with regards to colors. The Land Development Code currently requires the color of structures other than single-family homes, duplexes, or mobile homes to be limited to earth tones or pastels, with other colors excluding fluorescents being limited to not exceed 20% of any single elevation. The proposed amendment does not change any of that. It doesn't change the allowed colors. Rather, it just updates the determination of whether how a color qualifies as earth tone or pastel. The current definition in the code is based on a percentage of black or white in a given hue. And after after calling to verify colors that were proposed over the years and speaking to paint professionals at Home Depot and Lowe's and Sherwin-Williams, when you call and ask, does this color have 6% black content? They're like, yeah, we don't do it that way. That's not how we measure it. That's not really how the industry works. Colors are based on mixed with different bases. There's a variety of whites, a variety of blacks. There's different bases that you mix colors with. And so really the most consistent and measurable tool to determine a color is earth tone or pastel is the light reflective value. So we are updating the Land Development Code to use this light reflective value as an objective measurable standard that is the industry standard for determining colors. We've updated the definitions in the code to reflect that, and that'll give a clear and efficient determination when people apply for this. So let's see. The next one is Chapter 15. As we were amending the regulations for colors, we were thinking about, our code really doesn't, we allow murals. That was an amendment when we updated Chapter 15, but it doesn't really address that you can use more colors in murals than just earth tones and pastels. So this amendment basically clarifies that murals are not subject to the color regulations required for buildings, with the exception of reflective or fluorescent colors. Those are still prohibited for safety reasons. But it allows other colors in order to allow for that flexibility and creativity of unique artwork. So with that, staff is recommending approval and is here to answer any questions you may have.
Man, I learned more about colors than I ever thought.
Hopefully it'll help you out the next time you paint your house. Check that LRV.
I need an LRV check, please. You got anything? Daniel,
No
for
questions,
Penny?
thank you.
Bo.
Yeah, this is kind of interesting. Are we talking about residential and commercial?
For what?
As far as murals are concerned.
No,
Are we-
murals are not allowed in residential. There's our Land Development Code. Murals are in the sign code, and they're for like non-residential properties. And there's a
Yeah.
certain percentage. Like on Ridgewood, you can have 100% of an elevation, but other categories you can have, I think it's like 50% or something like that. So, but not for residential.
Yeah, I've always wanted to paint a big raccoon on my garage door, but because of the HOA, I can't
I was going
do
to say,
that.
I don't know if your HOA would approve that. I know them.
Yeah.
What if they're the right colors?
Topiary green.
Well, I do have another question. What about dumpsters? Is there any kind of a color code for those?
Dumpsters?
Yeah.
So dumpsters are supposed to be enclosed in a dumpster enclosure, and dumpster enclosures are required to be consistent with the principal structure. So most of buildings that you see that have that are more of like a Mediterranean look or what have you you'll see a lot of dumpsters that have a stucco finish, and then they'll have the opaque gate. Some along Ridgewood are more either like a PVC vinyl fence with a gate or wood enclosure with a gate. There are some older properties that were developed 70s and earlier that just have dumpsters out there without enclosures because they were built without them. But if they were ever to like redevelop or what have you, all the new development that you see has a dumpster enclosure, and so the dumpster itself is screened.
Yeah, and the same thing applies to temporary dumpsters on a construction site, right?
No, we don't regulate the color of
You don't?
temporary because they're just there for construction purposes.
Oh,
They're
okay.
It's not something that's going to stay on
Some of
site.
these dumpsters you see, there's blood running down the outside of, and
Is that raccoon?
Maybe it's rust.
What part of town are you talking about?
Port Orange.
Yeah, we'll check the other
Wrong
view.
conversation. Angela, you wanna chime in here?
I don't know if you can, I don't know how you follow that.
Please chime in here.
I don't have any questions.
Stan,
I actually have a question.
I think
Really?
you
You
would.
can see that, yeah. There's a couple things that are kind of interesting. Number one, if you go back to page 3, and there is a, about the 6th or 7th one down on relocation. So the bin cannot be moved without obtaining a new permit from the city. So if the business ceases, and now we're in front of an empty commercial building,
Correct, you have to remove it.
but I have to have a permit to move it?
No, so if you're, so say for example, you have a bank and they, and somebody, a business that has a donation bin approaches them to put a donation bin
Right.
in their parking lot in an approved area. That company or the property owner have to apply for
Right.
a permit to put the bin there, because we have to review now all this criteria, make
Right.
sure it meets it. If we issue a permit, if it meets all the criteria and they place it there, but then that business, the bank shuts down and it sits vacant, that bin has to be removed. Code enforcement will notify them to remove it. It can't be relocated if the business is vacant. It has to be an occupied business that's allowed to have them.
All right, so I guess the way I read it might have been screwed up, because it looked
Well-
like it was,
And also in this on relocation, say you have a shopping center, sometimes what we've been seeing is they'll drop some bins. Most of the time, all the property owners that we've talked to, these shopping centers, they've never been contacted for approval. These groups go and drop the bins there, and they don't ask approval by the property owner. The property owner doesn't want them there because they know it's not allowed. And so they'll remove them, but then like a week or two later, you'll just see them in a different spot, right? And so what this means is once you get approval to put it in this spot, you can't move it somewhere else without a new permit.
right. But if I don't have another place, I'm gonna bring it back to, say, the back of Goodwill. Do I have to have a permit to move it from the
To
the
remove
front
it
of
is
some,
what you're
yeah,
saying.
to move it,
Remove it from the.
because that's the way it reads.
Yeah, they're relocating it back to their office, for example.
No, that's not how the ordinance is written. It's to relocate it on the property, not to remove it. To relocate is to like locate it somewhere else on the property. Remove is to take it away. So you can't
I'm
take,
just reading, it says the donation bin shall not be moved from the approved location without obtaining a new permit. So if the location that was approved is no longer meets the code,
there's another section though that we go to that says if the business is no longer occupied, you have to remove it.
right.
So that clarifies
But
that.
do I have to, I guess.
You don't
am I
need a
reading
permit
this
to
wrong?
remove
'Cause
it.
It looked, all right, that's why I'm
No, you don't need a
asking.
permit to
Because
remove
it
it.
looked to me like I had to have a permit
No,
to pull it out of there.
no.
All right, well, that's just, me being me. The other thing that was kind of interesting is that the company that owns the bin has to move the bin in case there's basically a hurricane warning or hurricane watch. But yet we also require them to tie these things down so they won't blow over. So I'm assuming that most people who have bins out, it's not like they've got hundreds of bins out, they've only got 1 or 2 or 3 in the city. But they're gonna have to go ahead and remove it and unbolt it from whatever it's tied down to and move
Yeah.
it somewhere that's not gonna be subject to the wind.
Correct, because just because you're tying it down, there's not like it's not necessarily meeting Florida Building Code wind load standards, for example. There's not engineering or anything for the structure. You're tying it down so you don't get situations. I wish I put the picture in there, but I think it's on Taylor Road or somewhere like that. I don't know if you guys have seen it driving around. There's actually a bin like in the grass right next to the roadway, and it's like sideways tipped over. I don't know if anybody's seen it driving around town, but like we don't want stuff like that. So,
Yeah,
but it's obviously not, we can't guarantee that that would meet building code for wind load standards.
So is the property owner required to notify the bin owner that they're planning on shutting down?
No, but when we see that's, so there's code enforcement action, but they have the tools now to cite them. So when we know a property's been vacant, then we can contact because they're required by Florida law to have their contact information on the bin. So we can contact them and tell them this property is no longer
I get that, but
occupied.
what I'm saying is that, so the property owner has given the bin owner permission to be there. They're jointly and severally liable. There's a permit that's issued to one of them to have it there. So now the property owners are gonna go out of business. So at that point in time, by default, the bin owner has got to move that thing. Is there a notice from the property owner to the bin owner that, oh, by the way, in 3 weeks, I'm gonna fold up shop?
No, our regulations don't require that. It would obviously be in their best interest because they're taking on liability, but that's a private
They may have a
That's a
contract.
private
I
decision
understand
between the two. At the end of the day, the city will contact them that it needs to be removed.
But if they don't get a warning, and now code enforcement shows up and says, oh, by the way,
Well, they
You're
go
out
and
of
empty these
compliance.
bins, right? So they kind of know what's going on at the property too.
you'd be surprised.
Well,
It could be in their front yard, they might not know. So those were a couple of the things I had. Let me let somebody else in for right now.
Yeah, while you're at it, while you're doing that, my question was really, I've seen these bins, and some of these places, you look at it and you're like, who the heck put that there? Whose property is that they would allow that to be? So what you
they
said-
don't. So we've called when we see them popping up everywhere. We'll call the shopping center
Right.
owners that we know and we'll say, hey, did you give permission? Do you wear? No. Another one popped up, and they'll call and tell them to move it. A lot of times, not all of them, but I have spoken personally to a few that they have
To
said
the bin owners?
no to the shopping
property
center
owners, okay.
property manager, saying that no, we did not get permission. We don't want it here. I will have it removed.
And that's where my question was gonna head was, so you get these bins, somebody just drops them off in the middle of the night or the middle of the day, whenever, it doesn't really matter. Property owner doesn't have any idea that it's even there until you happen to call or code
Correct.
enforcement.
Yeah.
So how are we protecting the property owners from getting penalized for that when they didn't even know it was there?
Well, right now it's, we don't have the strongest regulations to be able to help cite them so that it's not just on the property owners trying to get them off. Now we will have clear and enforceable regulations so that code enforcement can do,
Well, but the
their job
liability
more
here, and
efficiently.
that's the way I read it, I assume that's the way I read it, but it says the permittee and property owner may be held individually. So, property owner has no idea it's even there.
once it's permitted.
I
Once
understand
it's
that.
permitted.
Once
Yeah.
it's permit, so if they just drop it off, no permit, like they're doing now, then you can only go after the bin owners?
Yeah, if there's no permit, because we don't, if there's no
Okay.
permit, then we don't have anything showing that the property owner gave permission or anything like that, then it's just the bin owner.
How responsive are these bin owners now when you call them out?
Right now, we've been primarily talking to property managers.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's required by law that they have their contact
There's
information.
Florida statute requirements that are cited here for specific signage where they have to clearly state their organization's name, and their contact information and things like that. And so that's required by Florida statute, and then we have other signage provisions that we allow as well. So that should be all very clearly on their,
Cool.
on
All
their
right.
bin.
Can I follow up, Tom?
No, let me ask one more question. Back to the non-residential temporary storage on non-residential properties. Is there currently no limit as to how long they can be on a property? So,
No, currently we don't have regulations for temporary storage. We have regulations for outdoor storage on non-residential where it
That's
has to
what
be
I'm talking about,
screened and things
temporary
like that.
storage.
But for temporary, we don't really have a provision
Okay.
for it. The code doesn't really address that.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, now you can understand.
Okay. So, is there a way, since this is gonna be something kinda new, is there a way that we can send out a letter or something just a generic letter, dear bin owner, here's the new rules, you
Yeah,
have to
that's in
do
the
this.
staff report that code enforcement has, the code enforcement's reviewed this proposed ordinance, and they've agreed, as documented in the staff report, that they are gonna send out a notification
Okay,
to all.
I must have missed that,
Yeah.
but that's one of the things I was thinking about, is
Yeah.
you have to let them know.
Mm-hmm.
There was something to do with the, like pods sitting in your, let's say that you're gonna resurface your garage floor. And you've
Are you
got-
talking about a residential property?
Yes, residential.
Okay, yeah, that's not part of the amendment. The amendment is just for non-residential. Residential is already addressed in the code. And so residential, there's a little cleanup on the residential, but it's not the main beef of what is in the amendment. Basically, if you have a permit, or for things that don't require permits, when you're doing like renovations, it can be there for the duration of that job that you're doing. Say you're resurfacing your garage or what have you, but then when you're done, it has to go.
You don't need a permit for that?
That was,
Resurfacing your garage, your floor of the garage?
Haven't been there while you've been
No,
Okay.
it's just part of your associated work that you're doing. Yeah.
yeah, that was my question, because if you look at, way in the back under chapter 16,
Mhm.
1, residential uses, and then, C, it says that, the pods are restricted to the driveway for a period not to exceed 72 hours in any contiguous 30-day period. But a lot of times you want that pod there so you can unload your garage, and then you're hoping that the guy, your contractor, is gonna be ready to go, so that when you're unloaded, he can start in right away, but that may not happen.
Well, and that's where it says, you know, or for inspection as applicable, or allowed for other improvements or scenarios that might not require. That's where we have that flexible language in there for administrative official. There's some improvements you might be doing that don't require a permit and may not require a CO or final inspection, but you're still doing improvements,
I just
and
don't
that's what
wanna
that
get
was.
arrested, okay?
Yeah, so we try to build in that flexibility there
Nah,
for
they're
that.
really nice about it, trust me.
Yeah, come on. Couple nights overnight,
You good?
I am good, yes.
I have one more question. What room were you painting? I did green and topiary tint.
Those were just the first ones that came to mind that were on the same.
Alright, anything?
Can we vote no pastels only?
Yeah, amended. 3-4 rounds
No
only.
pastels.
No, I
Just
was
hints of
just
green.
timing this conversation. We spent more time on this than we did on the pages.
We're good with you.
Thank you,
Any
sir.
public comment? Robert?
You want pastels?
Commission members, Robert Reinhagen, 1425 Dexter Drive North. I was confused with regard to the bins. Is this permitting a new requirement? And if it's an old requirement, will the current permits be recognized and grandfathered in? Thank you.
Thank you. Kenny, you wanna address that while we're on the mic?
Penelope Cruz Planning. There are new regulations. We currently do not have detailed regulations. Bins have been treated in the past as service areas where they just needed to be like screened from the right of way and things like that. We haven't had a permit that was required. It was just kind of an informal review. So there is no existing permit that you would have to notify anybody about. This is a new set of regulations with a new permitting requirement.
Thank you very much. Anything else? Any public comments? We're all good there. Bring it back to the commission, unless you have anything else. Assume you're ready to vote.
We're good?
Clerk, if you call the roll, please.
Stan Schmidt,
Yes.
Angela Ledoux,
Yes.
Daniel Malaco,
Yes.
Bobo Fabi,
Yes.
Thomas Jordan.
Yes. Passes. 0. Thank you very much. Other business, commissioner comments. Daniel, anything from you?
Welcome back, everybody. It's been a few months.
Yeah, really?
Good to see you guys again.
Yeah. Seems like forever.
Yeah.
Last year.
Been a year.
Let's do this again real soon.
Okay.
Next week.
Yeah, really. Angela, welcome. Glad you're here.
Thank you.
We missed you.
You're welcome.
We had an empty chair, and now you've taken care of us there. Any comments?
No. Thanks for having me.
You'll have to sit next to
Yeah, do I have to sit next to Stan? No.
Since you didn't bring cookies, that's why you're sitting
You get paid, you get paid bi-weekly, by the way, so.
There you go.
Stan.
Did we resolve the issue of, reorganization vote for this body?
A reorganization.
Yeah, we gotta do new
No,
officers and all that fun
next
stuff.
week. It's next one.
Oh,
Next
that.
Okay, that's why I didn't hear the final outcome of that, that's why I'm asking. Okay, cool. Start your campaigns now?
Very good. I have no comments other than thank you, staff. You guys do great work and we appreciate what you do for us. We missed you for the last 2 months. Any staff comments tonight?
Here it comes.
No? All right. Public comments. Robert? No? Seeing none. Seeing you're ready to adjourn. Is that all right?
Absolutely.
Thank you.